Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of Talkback, which is brought to you by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe at Southgate Mall. Selway Armory on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana. Montana's premier firearms dealer. Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, offering the best of western Montana living. Call 777-5387. Diggit Excavating, where they bring 30 years of excellence to every job. Visit their website at diggitmontana.com. Brought to you by Nissan and Hyundai of Missoula under new management, offering rebates, discounts, 0% financing on a huge selection of inventory. Stop by and see them today on Brooks near Southgate Mall. Also brought to you by Bulls Eyewear. They offer some of the lowest prices in town on contact lenses. See Lynette at 2910 South Reserve. And by Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service, maintenance, and repair. Give them a call today at 541-9097.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
All right, welcome, everybody. I'm waving at the camera. Hello. Oh, we don't have a camera for this. Oh, I thought we were supposed to get a camera in here.
Oh, there's so many things we're supposed to have. You know they're supposed to pay us?
No,
Yeah.
Let's not go too far.
I looked at the law the other day, and that's actually what they're supposed to do.
Wow. Well,
maybe someday.
You gave me something. Now, we're supposed to have a guest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In the studio, and
were you a little crestfallen?
Well, no. Until she gets here.
Sure.
It's a very sobering subject she wants to talk about. But since she's not here, you gave me this. Because anyone who knows me knows I'm a stickler for the English language. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Juice guys.
Yeah, that's right, you guys. So, especially when I hear a public official, a senator, a congressman, a scientist, a president of the United States, okay, say the word nuclear and mispronounce it by saying nuclear, I go nuclear.
Or do you go nuclear?
How difficult is it to pronounce a simple word like nuclear? I mean, come on, people. Well, then what John did, I actually think you made this whole thing up. I think you found the New York Times banner and you pasted it at the top. See, I can feel he's pasted right here. I pasted it at the top of the page, and it says, Confronting Nuclear Proliferation. That's the actual title of because I thought I was the only one. I really did. I thought I was the only fuss budget in the world who got upset when people used the word nuclear instead of nuclear. I can't even say it without retching inside my little self. But anyway, here's what it says. In recent weeks, throughout the public discussion of Iraq's weapons capabilities, Americans have heard the word nuclear pronounced nuclear by the president, many members of Congress, a general or two, even a few uneducated, ignorant news anchors.
This article, by the way, was published in 2002.
In the 2002?
So this is not new news.
This is 14 years old?
It's been around for a while,
Holy
Peter.
smoke. Now, what you told me, and I did not know this, which absolutely shames me to my very core, is that almost all the dictionaries out there, save one, and that's the only one I'm going to go to from now on.
The new standard.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's not Webster's.
All right. Almost all the dictionaries out there allow the pronunciation to be nuclear as well as nuclear. I can't believe it.
Now, you used
Talk
to be a,
about
you used to be a, you used to be a spelling bee coach, right?
No, I've never been a spelling bee.
Or you were the pronunciation guy for the spelling bee.
I did do this pronunciation.
I would love to have that standard dictionary that they give you for saying the pronunciations include both definitions, and you have to pronounce that in a formal setting. That would be your purgatory.
But see, the problem is when you say the word nuclear
or nuke.
Well, no. When you say the word nuclear, you automatically are going to misspell it. Because it's not spelled nuclear. It's spelled nuclear. N-U, and then the word clear. Nuclear. It is so easy. pretty soon dogs and cats will be living together. There'll be, loosened morals throughout the country. People will be doing anything and everything. And so anyway, all right. Well, we do have a special guest. Aside from all that silliness, we do have a special guest on the phone. We're going to get to in just a moment. So what I'm going to do is to wash the taste of this out of my mouth. Okay. I'm just going to pretend like this information doesn't.
Before we go, take up line 2. We got another word apparently.
All right.
Try and get crazy.
Okay. So we have another word. Go ahead. Yes. Good morning.
Peter, it's not so much in America, but the English say aluminium.
Aluminium. Yes. Aluminium, which is kind of.
That drives me crazy.
Well, it's still the same word.
All right.
Thanks for the call. All right, aluminium. I used to, he's my next door neighbor. All right, we're up against a break, and we do have a very special guest. So we're going to take a break and shift gears here. We have a very important topic to talk about. So we'll do that when we come back from the break. Okay, we're back on Talkback. Now we got all that silliness out of the way, so we're ready to talk about a serious subject. Although a very nice lady on the phone with us right now, talking to us from California. This is April Joy Ford. Morning, April. How are you?
Good morning. How are you guys this morning?
Doing fantastic.
Now, April had her PR people had sent out this, basically as a producer. Sometimes they give us material on, hey, would you like to have this guest on? And this is really a Valentine's Day guest, which was really kind of shocking to me because it was about the issue of domestic violence, which, of course, anyone who's lived in Missoula over the past 3 years, we've dealt with this. We've had our county attorneys talking about the research into choking.
Right.
We've had a book written about our town, Missoula Rape in a College Town. We've had a lot of this in the headlines recently. And even though we couldn't get her on the show for Valentine's Day, I thought it was an important enough topic to bring up today. So I was hoping, April, you could tell us a little bit of your story and maybe some of the things people could do to help prevent domestic violence from occurring in our lives or the lives of our loved ones.
Yeah, what's your story, April?
Sure, I'd be happy to share. It seems like your town has gone through, like you said, a lot of experience in this very important topic. And just to educate you guys more, you guys have been exposed to this. The World Health Organization actually quotes that close to 70% of women report physical abuse by an unfit partner at least. I mean, that's more than once in their lifetime. Wow. And, I'm sure you guys have heard of the warning signs of abuse. And one of it is really, I think you guys were talking about in the previous segment, of fear, is that they really do this by isolating the victim and all their friends and family. So pay attention. If you have a loved one that's been disconnected from you and that their spouse or partner just always seems to get in the way of you guys communicating or interacting, at social events or family events, that could be a big warning sign. Obviously, other big warning signs are physical signs of harm on their body, also verbal and emotional threats and manipulation, and it all goes back to really trying to control the victim and creating an environment of fear. And what I really want your audience to do in this segment is really, let's take a moment to expand our awareness and perception and thought process further, because when we hear the words abuse or domestic violence itself, there really should be more of an emphasis on why we should really pay bigger attention to those words, because it actually creates a ripple effect, what I call, or a domino effect, because of the impact it creates beyond the victim. You guys are asking about my personal story, and allow me to briefly share that to illustrate that point. My mother was a victim of domestic violence. Again, going back to quote-unquote domestic violence. But here I was at the age of 9 years old in that household where domestic violence existed, where I was affected by it mentally, emotionally, physically, and unfortunately sexually. At the age of only 9 years old, my stepfather raped me at 9 years old, and this lasted for 10 years, resulted in me getting pregnant at 16. I was in the middle of high school. I had to worry about, carrying my stepfather's baby and what to do, living in fear. And I really felt that my confidence at 16 was stripped away from me, my worthiness, my self-esteem, my trust in people. I lived daily consumed in fear. I felt a lot of shame, isolation, and felt really alone, and even had suicidal thoughts. So that's why I bring up the point. Let's not just get caught up on the word of domestic violence as it relates to a spouse or a partner and just the adults, but the domino effects that it creates on the rest of the family unit.
April, I got to just jump in here for a second. You sound like a very well integrated woman who has it together enough so that you're able to share your story with people that you don't know about, 1,000 miles away. What happened? How were you able to get over that really tragic childhood that many would have used for an excuse to simply give up on life, and you obviously didn't do that. So what happened?
Well, you know what? I always say that I'm just like everybody else. I experienced what any normal person would feel. Like I said, I admittedly had suicidal thoughts. I felt alone. I felt, scared and fearful of my life, just like anybody. I'm not this superhuman that was immune to feeling those situations. I remember one instance, I'll share one of them, when I was driving to work one day. I was still an intern for Intel Corporation. And I just thought to my mind, gosh, wouldn't it just be easier to just give up and drive off the side of the road and just end my life, as opposed to dealing with my stepfather and going through all these threats and abuse. But something within me just pulled me and just held on to those dreams. And I felt like my dreams were promised to me. And it could be a small positive thought that you just held on to, that somebody said to you, or something that you heard, or somebody that you looked up to. And that's why I'm really passionate now to speak on my trauma, because I know that other women who are still suffering in silence just need to hear from somebody who has gone through the same path that they have, and just let them know that there's still hope out there for them. If they can hold on to that hope and let them know that they deserve the same happiness and life that I was able to build after my tragedy.
I wanted to ask you a question, and this is the question. I was blessed. I didn't grow up in this environment. And frankly, as far as I know, I've known nobody that's had to live through this sort of ordeal personally, close in my family. How do you recognize suffering in others? We recently had a case here in Missoula where a woman who was later murdered, went to work every day, had an opportunity to call or yell for help, was under a constant threat of being killed if she said anything. She never said anything.
Not only that, she told her coworkers that if anything ever happens to me, here's where you'll find my body. And she was right.
And she was right. The day that she tried to leave, she died. Right. How do you head something like that off at the pass?
Wow. Well, I would like to, start off. Obviously, she was trying to reach out for help. She's trying to reach out for help, and I don't know what the circumstance was in that particular situation. Each situation is unique and different, but it's almost like people are too afraid or scared to just lend a genuine hand or let them know, hey, if you ever need help, I'm here to support you without any judgment at all. And when we look at these warning signs, it's very important for us to approach, again, without seeming too nosy and intrusive, but really take a stance on breaking the silence and cycle of abuse. Even though we don't know, what to do or what to say, we don't have to be the expert and authority in all situations. And I have a suggestion for people that I know some of the listeners out there are going to challenge me, and hopefully you guys don't turn off your radios now or fight me on this, but just hear me out and the reason why I'm saying this. Instead of immediately demonizing the perpetrator or the abuser and just empathizing with the victim, I actually suggest that you befriend both parties, because you never know what the accuser is going through. There's so many complex situations out there that, aren't always black and white. And one of them could be mental illness like PTSD, or somebody's having a reaction to their medication and they're having a psychological episode. You never know what's really going on. And seeing things as black and white where you demonize the one party and rescue the other, that's an old approach. Here in the real world, things are much more complicated, and I'm not justifying any of the abuse or actions by any of these elements, but I'm really trying to put out there, we're really truly here to break the cycle of silence of abuse. Let's let's face it, it's the abusers that really need help. So it's a good strategy if you have a friend or a loved one or a coworker in that story that you guys shared that are showing some signs of abuse or you're concerned, try to reach out to them. It could be a simple coffee conversation where you're building trust on both parties, and when you build that trust, they're more likely to receive help.
Hey, April, we're going to go to a break here in just a second. But when we get back, I want to ask you a little bit about your book. The book's title is You Are Not Alone. Tell us who this book is for, what sort of situations the book can help coach people through.
Okay, we're going to come right back. We have lines open. If you want to visit with April Joy Ford, this is a perfect opportunity. Maybe you can share your story, maybe get a little inspiration, maybe tell your story if you'd like. You don't have to use your real name if you don't want to. That's fine. 721-1290 is our number. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. April Joy Ford joining us, the author of You Are Not Alone. And before we went to the break, John asked you the question, so who is this book for?
Well, You Are Not Alone is really for anybody who feels alone in their adversity or challenge. I mean, let's face it, none of us are really immune to life's challenges. I get the question a lot, well, is this really only for women? And it's like, well, are you guys immune to life's challenges that we need to figure out what are women doing wrong that you guys don't have any life challenges? So, no, it's not just for women. It just came from not only my personal experience from a women's perspective, but I've also included other stories in there and how other people have overcome and rise above their challenges. And really, I believe that life gives us an opportunity to, I call it hitting the reset button on your life to discover who you're truly meant to be, and the real key secret is how you rise above life's challenges. Again, none of us are ever immune to life's challenges, but how do we come out of it? What did we learn, and who do we discover who we're truly meant to be by going through that process?
Now let me ask you, April, does part of the reason why women don't come forward is either A, that they're ashamed somehow that they got into this situation in the first place, and that B, that and they may be afraid of their partner? I think that's what happened in the situation here in Missoula, terrified of their partner.
Right. Fear, like I said, fear plays a lot into the environment because that's the environment that you're programmed in. You're consumed daily living in fear, and what that fear breeds is a lot of shame and guilt. If you were to speak up on your situation, you think that people are going to judge you of, oh, why did you stay with this person, or why did you go back to that person? It's a lot of mind manipulation that goes on in the victim, not to blame the victim themselves, but the reality is it's a lot of psychological barriers that the victim has to go through the process of healing.
It's like, I'm the one with the bloody nose and it's my fault? What? I mean...
Right. And, we never want to put blame on the victim, but when you're in that environment, like I said, fear, and you're isolated, you don't have a support system or a network to rely on, and that becomes your land of familiar.
I wanted to ask you what the basic ingredients of domestic abuse are. I mean, if you isolate it before it ever gets to the point of impact, if you will, before that happens, what are some of the ingredients that you find in relationships or in life that seem to lead towards this end?
Well, people ask all the time, okay, why do people stay or go back in unhealthy relationships? Like you said, what are the ingredients? And I call them anchors, certain anchors that you can look for. It could be, financial dependency. There's a lot of codependency in relationships, unfortunately, where women aren't equipped or empowered to stand on their own to be financially independent. And other anchors could be emotional, maybe because of their past emotional hurts, a previous relationship, or maybe in childhood issues like I had to go through that haven't, been addressed and healed. It could be mental illness or imbalances. You never know what's really going on in the individual, and I call those anchors.
Sure.
It could be, maybe they didn't have a reference point growing up. They're having a model of what love looks like or a healthy relationship should look like.
April, we are unfortunately running into a hard break here. So Tell us how we can get your book and get more information on this very important topic. What do we do?
Yeah, people can go to myjoyagain.com. All they do is enter their name and email. I'm actually giving away as a gift a copy of the bestseller You Are Not Alone,
right,
and also an inspirational journal. So go to myjoyagain.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story, April.
Thank you for having me.
You take care. Bye-bye. Wow. Okay, we're going to take a break. That's very, very moving, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Talkback is underway, brought to you by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe, Kootenai Creek Village, Dig It Excavating, Transport Equipment, Bullseye Wear, Nissan and Hyundai of Missoula, and Selway Armory. Okay, it's definitely the political season, and we are honored to have with us one of the Republican candidates for governor, Greg Gianforte. Greg, thanks for joining us this morning. You have been all over the state, sir.
We have. It's been, there's few things more enjoyable than driving around and visiting with Montana.
All right. So, now, I understand that you're having something called the Regulation Roundup. So what's this all about?
Yeah, so as I've visited with folks, I hear the same theme over and over again. People are telling me they're dying a death of 1,000 cuts. Regulations from both state and federal are making it harder and harder for individual Montanans to start and grow businesses. So we came up with this idea to go speak with the people about what are the specific issues. We created a website, regulationroundup.com, and we're asking everybody that's listening now if they can think of a regulation that's getting in the way of them prospering. My commitment is when I'm governor, we're going to round them up, and then we're going to take the excessive ones, and we're going to put them out to pasture.
Wow. Hey, I'll give our listeners an opportunity to do that today. If you have a regulation you feel that's preventing you from achieving more success in your business or your life, give us a call, 721-1290. Greg, I would like to hear some of the recommendations that have been brought to you so far. And since you're using the Roundup theme, I mean, are you going to get a branding iron or anything like that to kind of carry the whole motif through?
Well, I will say if you put them up on the website, we curate them and put them back there. We make them anonymous so that individual people aren't disclosed, but other people can go and then vote on them. It's sort of like a like button on Facebook, except when you push this button, you round them up, and the lasso goes right around the regulation, and I think that's kind of cool.
So anything specific so far that you've
Sure.
heard that sounds really egregious?
Well, there are simple things like a journeyman electrician here in the state. Most states require that to be an apprentice electrician, you need one journeyman master electrician to supervise and train them. But in Montana, we require 3 journeymen for each apprentice.
Wow.
And it just makes it harder for people to break into the electrician business, and that's preventing livelihoods. That's one example. We've heard others. A lot of contractors have talked about the high cost of workman's compensation, and it's been pointed out that North Dakota, their workman's comp costs are 1/3 of Montana, and they have better benefits. So that's something we have to investigate and look at because it's making it harder. It makes the cost of every construction project harder, more expensive. It increases the cost of housing. This impacts everybody.
Wow. I wanted to ask you a question about some recent Supreme Court decisions and the effect on Montana. The recent decision on the clean coal plan, right, came through recently. They're going to put a stay on it. And I was wondering if you would have responded to that decision differently than Governor Bullock did.
Well, I was very pleased that Attorney General Tim Fox stood up and filed suit against the EPA. He joined 27 other states in this pushback of federal overreach. I want to be clear. This stay is not a dismissal. We're not out of the woods yet. If this had been enacted, we would have lost 7,000 jobs in the state of Montana, and every single person's electric bill would have gone up by 16%. This would have been the largest catastrophic economic event in Montana in 30 years. And we need an administration in Washington that's standing side by side with our Attorney General to fight for Montana's rights. Our current governor has not and is not doing that.
Now, there's another topic that came up that was part of the news just the other day, matter of fact, yesterday, in fact, where some 3 different environmental groups, their lawyers, were able to get signed on to lawsuits against energy companies and states over sage grouse habitat, where they felt that the government lawyers were not going to represent their clients, in other words, their environmental groups' interests, forcefully and zealously enough. And so they are now a part of this whole equation in getting this taken care of. And it just seems like, to me, it just sounds like someone is trying to just empty the West.
Well, what is happening is the overreach by the federal government, whether it's the EPA or the Endangered Species Act. It's a taking of property rights here in the state of Montana. And it's not just federal issues, though, too. I mean, we saw just in the news this week the whole issue with the Montanore mine up in Libby. Now, I don't think we should be approving every single permit that comes into the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. However, those poor folks up in Libby, where they have some of the highest unemployment in the state, have been waiting 11 years for the permit to start this mine. They've invested $30 million. And unfortunately, the Montana Department of Environmental Quality said they were going to make a decision by the end of January. We got to the end of January. You know what they said? We need a little more time. 11 years wasn't enough. They now have the federal permits, but the state is still sitting on their hands, and the consequence is there are people that are suffering up in Lincoln County.
All right. Now, we do have a caller on the line who wants to visit with you. Is that all right? Let's get him on right now. Mike, you're on with Greg Gianforte. Go ahead.
All right. I'll get straight to it. I spent over an hour on the phone trying to talk to you last night on the phone, but here's the problem I got. I'm a trapper, and there's a heck of a bunch of us in Montana. We are basically excluded from trapping on state land unless we kiss somebody's behind to get there. Everybody else can use it, but us trappers. And to deliberately go out and try and destroy the fur industry in Montana, which is very important to a lot of small people all over the state, is just not one of my things that really make me happy. So that was what I was calling you about last night. And by the way, if that fisher gets on that, like the guy said last night, if that fisher gets on that endangered species list, kiss it goodbye, because we will have everything locked up.
All right. Thanks, Mike. We'll let Greg answer that. So what are you thinking about trappers and what they're going through right now, speaking of regulations?
I would encourage the gentleman to go to regulationroundup.com, put his request in there. I'm a trapper myself. In fact, my daughter went off to college last year, and it broke my heart a little bit. She went out of state. She went to California, and it's interesting. She told people she was from Montana. She shared with them that she and I used to run a trap line together. We used to use conibears and trap beaver in the East Gallatin River and mink and raccoons. And anyway, she told me she won an award. And I said, Rachel, what award did you win? And she said, well, the whole dormitory knows I ran this trap line and I killed an elk and deer, and I'm from Montana. They voted me most likely to survive the Hunger Games.
All right. Tell you what, Greg, we're up against a break, and we have Craig on the line that wants to visit with you. We also have one line open at 721-1290. So.
What's that Stephen Colbert skit? The Hungry for Power Games when he talks about the presidential elections.
We'll be right back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. We've got Greg Gianforte on the line, Republican candidate for governor. And we've got, I believe it is Greg. Craig. Craig, you're on with Greg. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen.
What's up?
Hey, Mr. Gianforte, is that right? So,
yep, Gianforte, yes, that's right. You can call me Greg.
11 years is too long to wait for anything but a hanging. But nonetheless, the problem with these mines and stuff like this, they get these permits and they buy these bonds and everything to ensure they'll clean up the mess. And then when they're done tearing everything up, they leave town and leave us with the mess. So that's taxpayers. And I think that's one of the reasons they create so much hatred and discontent, I love my environment just as much as the next guy, but, you can get carried away with things. But anyways, that's just my comment, is that they leave us the mess and we have to pay for it.
All right, thanks, Greg. So, Greg, how would you handle that if you're elected governor?
I think I was over in the mining city last night in Butte, and there's no question that we used to have too few regulations, and we got left with some messes. The rules have changed. I was out in the Rosebud mine here recently, out in Colstrip, but you know where all the mule deer were?
Right.
They were standing on the reclaimed portions of the mine, and there are rules in place that weren't in place 50 years ago. I believe that we can responsibly develop natural resources and not harm the environment, and that's got to be the priority. I think, though, that the pendulum has swung from not enough rules to too many rules. That's why we're doing this regulation roundup, regulationroundup.com. We'd love to hear from people. I'll tell one other example. The Otter Creek tract, the state of Montana took $86 million from Arch Coal for the coal deposits in the Powder River there. And then DEQ did not give them a permit. So we took $86 million and didn't give them a permit to the deposits they bought to excavate, and now Arch Coal's in bankruptcy. I just asked the question for all our listeners is, what's going to encourage another company to come to Montana and do business with the state?
All right, let's get Jerry on the line. Jerry, you're on with Greg Gianforte. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. I was wondering, Greg, if you had a plan or aware of the problems that the veterans have in Montana, and do you have we've reached out, at least I reached out to our local congressman and stuff and just ran up against a brick wall. Do you have a plan or aware of the problems that the veterans have in Montana with the health care? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Thanks.
And what specifically can the governor do for the veterans in Montana, Greg?
Well, Jerry, I'm assuming from your question that you are a veteran. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We had to let him go.
Yeah, okay. So, and we have, at first, let me just say, Jerry, thank you for your service to this country. We have a special debt that we owe to our veterans. And as I've chatted with veterans, one of the issues is access to health care. I mean, I hear various stories about the VA hospitals, but I'm a fan. As I talk to veterans, they would like to be able to use the regular doctor in addition, and that's hard. There are issues with getting access to prescriptions in a timely manner. And the thing that concerns me the greatest is we have one of the highest suicide rates amongst veterans in Montana. We lose a veteran about every 36 hours in Montana. And I think that's something that is a priority for the state. There are programs that can help, again, we have a special obligation there to help veterans.
Okay, let's get back to the phone. Ed, you're on with Greg Gianforte. Go ahead.
Greg, are you there?
He's there.
Hi, Ed. Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I heard something here that you're a trapper and your daughter's a trapper. Is that correct? Did I heard that correctly?
Yeah, in fact, if you go back-to-back issues, my daughter was featured in Fur Fishing Game with a big 50-pound beaver that she trapped with me on the East Gallatin River.
Okay. Are you a member of the Montana Trappers Association?
I am not.
Well, by golly, how come?
Well, why don't you send me an application and I'll sign up?
By golly, I'll do that.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, Ed.
I got a magazine subscription to sell you, too, Greg. How about a new bridge?
Yeah. Well, no. By the way, it's interesting that you would talk about that because you are actually going to be appearing. You're going to be in Lolo at 9:30, and then here in Missoula, at 4 this afternoon? Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, we have a number of stops today: Lolo, Stevensville, Hamilton, and then Missoula. This is our regulation roundup. We're asking all Montanans to either come to one of these events we're having. They're posted on regulationroundup.com, or if there are regulations that are preventing them from prospering here in Montana, enter them in. Our commitment is when I'm governor, we're going to take the excessive ones and put them out to pasture.
All right, we got to go to a break, Greg, but when we get back, I want you to take on what I think has been the most common thread of argument against you from those on the other side, and it's basically this. Governor Steve Bullock has done a pretty good centrist job of running Montana. He hasn't gotten us into a whole lot of trouble, hasn't made any giant mistakes. The economy's growing, it's getting stronger. Greg Gianforte is the outsider who is a danger. The reason why he's a danger is because he wants to deregulate things. He's going to open up a lot of public land that you like to go on and hunt on, and it's going to get privatized, and you're going to lose access. And we don't want to lose that traditional Montana value here by electing Greg Gianforte. So stay with Bullock. When we get back from the break, I'd like you to take that charge head on.
Okay, we're going to come right back. It's 9:20, and Tom is waiting also to visit, and we'll be right back. Okay, thanks for joining us on Talkback this morning. Republican gubernatorial candidate Greg Gianforte joining us on the telephone. And, John, you just asked a question a minute ago.
I wanted you to take head on this accusation that you're going to threaten hunting and fishing access and lands access to Montana in the gubernatorial race if you win.
Sure. So, I'm running for one reason, and that's because we're 49th in the country in wages, and we've been exporting our kids for decades. I'm a business guy. I've never run for political office, and, people are going to have a very clear choice this fall. They can go with the current administration, but they should expect more of the same. As it relates to hunting access, last time I checked in my freezer, I had 8 different species in there. I'm a big fan of hunting. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. This current governor is no friend of gun rights. He vetoed 2 gun rights bills in this last legislative session. I do not support de-transfer to the state at this time because I think it's unattainable. I am a fan of increased state management of federal lands because I think it's a travesty that we burn our forests every summer instead of managing them. If we managed our forests, we'd have more wildlife, there'd be more hunting opportunities, and we'd be putting people to work at our lumber mills, and our forests would be healthier.
We got a question on Facebook from Elena. She wants to know, on February 22nd at 11 a.m., American Security Rally of Montana will gather in front of the Helena Capitol. Will you be there?
I'm not familiar with the event.
All right. And then I think this probably ties into the event. She wants to know, where do you stand with Montana accepting refugees?
Yeah, so I believe the refugee problem has been brought about in large part because of a lack of leadership in Washington. My heart goes out to the refugees. I do not think we should be settling them here in the state.
All right, let's get to the phone. And, let's get Tom on the line. Tom, you're on with Greg Gianforte. Go ahead.
Good morning. As far as the federal land transfers, again, John asked the question, how do you convince people that you're not going to sell off public land if it's transferred? I don't know the exact wording on the Enabling Act. If you could bring that back, if you can convince people that those lands aren't going to be transferred, just because you hunt and fish doesn't mean, or doesn't convince the other side that you're going to still have access to these lands. Right. And also, if the state does get control of the federal lands, the national forests and such, does that mean you can have a better job of extraction processes? Can you, because if the state has access or control of these lands, does that eliminate the what do they call it? Equal Opportunity to Justice Act, where a lot of these environmental groups have the federal government pay for their lawyers to stop extraction processes.
Okay, let's let him answer that because we're running short of time. So, Greg, what do you think?
So, we've lost over 500 timber jobs in the last year, in large part because of all this litigation you're referencing. One of the things I've said very clearly, the things I can control as a governor is the leadership in the agencies. Right now, our Montana Department of Environmental Quality doesn't know how to issue a permit. We talked about Otter Creek. This Montanore mine is a travesty, taken 11 years. They still can't make up their mind. I would put people in charge of these agencies who have actually walked in the shoes of the people they're trying to serve. I would like to see somebody who has experience on the ground in charge of DEQ. I'd like to see a landowner in charge of DNRC. And, for example, at Department of Labor, I'd like to see somebody who's actually had an employee before.
All right. Now, I have a quick question about the National Bison Range up in Moise. Evidently there's a movement to turn that over completely to the CSKT tribe. Do you favor that? Or you're not in favor? Or do you know anything about it?
I have not studied that issue in detail. I was very concerned about the additional grazing of bison outside of Yellowstone Park because it just our neighbor down there is not managing the resource well, and bison don't read road signs very well, so they wander out bringing brucellosis with them, and it's taking of property rights from our cattlemen down there. I would not assign that order. I would be working with the national park to get their number of bison in the park down to the carrying capacity of the park. They're not being good stewards, and they're not being good neighbors.
I would partially answer the last callers that the NEPA process is different for federal agencies than it is for state agencies. It's less strict for state agencies, meaning things get done faster and I would say more efficient.
Right.
Yeah, and I would just add that, again, I am opposed to deed transfer to the state of federal lands. I do think we should be working towards pilot projects that give the state more control of the resources that are in our state, but I do not support deed transfer.
Okay, got time for one more quick question?
Yes.
Okay, let's get Christy on the line. Christy, real quick, you're on with Greg Gianforte. Go ahead.
I would like to ask him about property taxes. We have some income properties in Missoula, and over the last 7 years, the property taxes have averaged increases to where now we're paying $700 a year more than we were when we bought the property, and it's just out of control. As a governor, is there any way you can rein in some of these property tax increases that these cities are doing?
Okay, thanks, Christy. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, we've seen massive increases in state government. We've seen 20% increase in the last 3 years alone, 40% in the last 12 years. The first thing you do when you're in a hole is stop digging. I'd like to see a slowdown in growth in state spending. We also, as we get a more vibrant private sector, and we have more income tax revenue for the state, there's less reliance on the local property taxes. We saw that in Gallatin County. In fact, it's the only county in the state. We helped create 40% of all the wage growth in the whole state in Gallatin County, and it's the only county in the state that did not see maximum increase in their mills on the property taxes. So I think we've shown what a vibrant private sector could do, and my proposition is simple. Let's put a business guy in Helena, create a stronger private sector so we stop exporting our kids.
Ever since the Kelo decision, many states and municipalities have reformed their own eminent domain laws to make it stricter and more difficult for eminent domain to take place. I was wondering if you would support a stricter interpretation of eminent domain in Montana.
Well, I think eminent domain is a necessary tool, but its use should be very restricted to where there's very clear common good. And I want to thank you guys for having me on today. I have a room full of people here waiting to talk about
We'll take care of them, yes, for sure.
All right.
Thanks so much for your time.
Take care, Greg.
Okay, great talking with you all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the callers.
All right.
Yep,
all right, you bet. All right, so there we
go.
We sucked
Got to
the
try
marrow.
to get that last
That's
drink
right.
out, right?
We're up against a break. 721-1290 is our number, and phones are open, so whatever you want to talk about.
Nuclear war, whatever is
Thank
on
you.
your mind.
Thank you for saying that.
We'll talk about it.
And we also have, now I'm a little leery of this. Hillary Clinton barking like a dog? What is that? It's for real?
It's happening.
Okay. I realize that she's narrowing her constituency, but for crying out loud. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. Open phones are what's going on right now. So all three lines are full.
Take the phone calls.
Imagine.
Everyone's like, oh, we have to hear Hillary barking. I think I will call in right now to prevent this.
Dave, you're on Talkback. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yes, I heard you this morning talk about nukes.
Yes.
Right. And I have a problem with people who get history wrong.
Yeah.
Top of my list would be Saddam Hussein. He never kicked inspectors out of his country. That is, and anyone who says differently is wrong. Number two, the Iron Curtain fell during George H. Bush's presidency, not during Ronald Reagan's time in office.
Well, there is a little bit more to that story, though, too. You're right; it didn't completely fall.
Right.
But it was pushed to the brink.
Wasn't it Ronald Reagan that said, Mr. Gorbachev, bring down that wall, tear down that wall?
Yes, he said that. Yeah, right. That's true. But it didn't come down until George H. Bush was in office.
Somebody had to get the ball rolling, Dave.
Let's be frank. George H.W. Bush was Ronald Reagan's vice president.
Right.
It was a continuation of the Reagan presidency, and it happened, if I'm not mistaken, in the first year of George H.W. Bush's presidency.
Right.
So you're talking. I mean, you're parsing words, really. You could say that it didn't happen during his reign, but really it was a direct result.
In a literal sense, you're right, though, Dave.
And as far as the inspectors, the problem wasn't necessarily kicking them out. It was lying to them and tricking them and moving the locations, etc. under Saddam Hussein.
Playing hide the cheese.
Right. But
and also being frank with everyone, saying he had them. That was the thing that just was surprising to everybody. I mean, everybody, including the French, thought that he had the weapons because he kept telling everyone he did.
Well, he would tell the Iranians he did. But historically, as I remember it, the inspectors during Bill Clinton's time in office almost found him. And he got scared and destroyed his factory that was set to make them. And as such, he was afraid of inspectors and didn't want any of them to be found, so he just didn't. He didn't make them anymore, or didn't try to make them, and pretended that he had them to keep Iran from coming back at him.
All right, thanks for the update. Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Always a pleasure talking with you. Tyler, we have a line open, by the way. Tyler, you're up.
Thanks, guys. So I want to talk about Supreme Court Justice Anthony Scalia's death.
Okay.
I want to touch. We talked about it yesterday a little bit, but we didn't really talk about his death. We talked about more like the political aspect of his replacement.
Right.
Are you guys looking at the facts in the case and kind of scratching your head like I am?
From what I understand, he was found laying on his back with a pillow over his face.
That's correct.
Okay. So how often does a person die by laying on their back with a pillow over their face of natural causes with nobody else in the room?
Okay, I'm going to creep everybody out here. When I travel into other places, hotel rooms, whatever, I will often put a pillow over my face when I sleep. It actually helps me sleep. It blocks out sound. It just makes me feel more comfortable. I know it's weird.
Well,
I'm just saying someone might do this and not be choked to death.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be nefarious.
Exactly.
Well, don't you think that we ought to have an autopsy to kind of maybe rule it out?
I do. The fact they didn't have an autopsy, that they called a judge that never saw the body.
Right.
The whole thing about the heart attack and then there not being one.
It's Texas, you know.
It's weird, albeit it's really weird.
Well, the body is now in Virginia,
yeah.
and which means now it's a Virginia problem. And there should be an investigation in Texas to figure out what happened and why it went so wrong.
Well, now,
it would be like the president dying and everybody going, okay, that's cool. Don't worry, we don't need to know why. We'll just take your word for it.
Well, hold on a second. I believe there may be, if I look back in my memory banks, something else happened in Texas where a high-ranking official died. And lots of strange things going on. If I
Peter's favorite conspiracy theory. He's really into this. Hold the presses. I'm sorry, no one's getting in on the line. Peter will talk about the JFK assassination all day long.
Remember the fact that this happened 6 days after the Supreme Court said the EPA actions by Obama were unconstitutional and need review.
Wow.
So this is literally like the Supreme Court saying, okay, Obama, you need to slow down. We're going to check your role. And Obama going, oh, yeah? I'm going to take your top justice, and I'm going to make the court now a 4-4 split, and you can't do anything about it.
I mean, if it was that well planned, he would have done it before the decision.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he didn't know what the decision was going to be. Maybe they pulled the fast one on him.
He got screwed over by the Supreme Court 3 times on big environmental plans.
Oh, yeah. I think that he just would not take no for an answer, and off you go.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Wow. Okay.
There's, of course, a part of everybody white that wants a bigger plan. The thing, and I do think you're right, Tyler, there are a lot of really suspicious, strange things that happen in this case, and you cannot deny it. At the same time, the guy has 9 kids, like 32-something grandkids, a lot of family members. From what I've been able to see, a lot of them, and usually family is clued in onto the details a little bit more specifically than the general public is.
Nobody's come forward, right?
I haven't seen it yet. And so I'm wondering if there's a little bit of a mountain being made out of a molehill here. But Who knows? Maybe not.
Well, we're gonna. I think an autopsy should be done.
I do.
Just for the peace of mind of the nation.
For public safety. Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to come right back, and Pete is on the line, but we do have 2 lines open. So if something on your mind this morning, 721-1290 is our number. You want to talk about JFK assassination? I can go into that for you. Because after all, I'm old enough to remember. We'll be right back. You got Talk Back rolling right along. Only about 15 minutes left in our fabulous radio program. But folks want to get on the radio for some reason. That's why we call it a talk show. Hey, Pete, you're on Talk Back. Hi.
Good morning. I appreciate it. And it reminded me when Gianforte called in about Gallatin County and their taxes have not grown at the rate of Missoula's and how they haven't gone up to the taxes at all. We've been at the other end of the scale. And yet they're one of the fastest growing areas in the state. You, Mayor Engen, you're paying attention.
Well, it would be helpful if they had a Right Now Technologies out of somebody's garage here in Missoula, like they did in Bozeman.
Yeah, or if they are here, they probably relocated out of town already. But
well, and maybe not unless they had to have a sign of some sort. Then they'd be in big trouble. Sorry, go ahead.
I've been noticing these very informative, full-page, paid-for articles by the water company that are really enlightening, addressing the numbers and the acquisition costs. Therefore, when you go to service that debt, this is how the costs are, and they don't add up. And I find that informative. What I even find more interesting is that our city council, who I think for the most part there's some people on there that can read and understand, why aren't they asking the chief financial officer of the city to put a piece together about what it is going to cost us, and look at those scenarios that the other information's appeared in the paper, and let's put it out there and let the people look at it. What glasses are we looking through from the city?
Well, have you made that suggestion to the mayor or perhaps your city councilor?
I have to the councilman.
Okay, all right. Now, what ward do you live in?
I'm over here on the South Hills.
Okay, so you probably live in Ward 5 like I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so why they, this, and they've yet to publish an operating plan. How do you acquire something without having an operating plan together and what the costs might be?
Well, I'll tell you what, we will try to pursue that for you, and I will get that word to the communications director for the mayor and see if that can't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. I will do that today, in fact. Line 3's ringing. Wow, everybody wants to get on the radio. Candy, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yes, I am a talk radio fanatic. And on Sunday, of course, people know that. On Sunday, after Scalia's death, that guy Poindexter that owned that hotel or whatever.
It's a resort, yeah.
Okay, and this is one of those one-time and never said again situations. He said when he walked into Judge Scalia's room that Judge Scalia was very peaceful looking and had his hands crossed over his chest, and the sheets were pulled up to his chin. He never mentioned a pillow on his face. And then on Michael Savage, what I could hear of it, because it was coming and going on the radio station on 930.
Right.
Okay, they were having problems. On his station, his show, he mentioned that point that when the Poindexter guy walked in and saw him, he was in a peaceful repose, and the covers were up to his chin, and this pillow story came after that.
Ah, okay.
Okay, and the reason why the city doesn't come out with its plan is the same reason why they never asked the public if they wanted refugees in Montana to settle in Missoula, because they never go to the public with any question that has public importance that we could, have our input in public comment or public exposure, just like the water company when they did that poll. They only polled Democrats, basically, because it was 55 to 20 or 25.
Okay.
So they don't go to the public with what they're planning.
Okay,
Thanks.
Andy, we got to run. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Andy and Alan are both waiting. We'll get you guys on. And we have one line open, 721-1290. So we're coming right back.
Damn, it feels good to be a Clinton. Damn, it feels good to be a Clinton.
Okay, well, we might do that a little bit maybe next week. But
that was part of a Ted Cruz ad we'll talk about later.
Very, very funny. All right, Andy, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi, how are you this morning?
Fantastic,
Good,
sir. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a general question that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in. I hear on radio and on TV that after one caucus and two primaries, if Donald Trump wins South Carolina with a lot of room to spare, that he's like almost a shoo-in.
Yeah, it's smooth sailing. That's what they keep saying.
Smooth sailing, yeah. My question is, why do we have 47 other primaries if they're giving it to him after three?
Well, the people that are giving it to him after three don't know how it works.
It just seems to me real silly that they would say stuff like that.
South Carolina is a big deal. It is well known for choosing presidents.
It's kind of a bellwether.
It's a very important primary. It's more important than the other two that have happened so far. It's not as important as some other ones that give out more.
Well, one of them was a caucus, and the other one was New Hampshire. So
sure. Florida is a big deal because they have a lot of votes, and they're giving them out soon. And of course, Super Tuesday, which is coming up in next month, that will be a really big deal. But South Carolina is like a sign of what's to come. Here's the thing that a lot of people do not really get about the whole primary process, but it's coming, and it looks more and more likely to happen this election season than in others. It's very, very likely, it seems to me, that we come to the nomination and nobody has a majority of the delegates needed in order to become president.
So you're talking about a brokered convention?
Well, brokered isn't technically the term. That's the term people use when they want to say that it's not fair.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, there's a process. If there isn't someone with the majority where the party people get a second vote, and they might choose someone that hasn't even run in the primary yet. They could go and pick out, the Speaker of the House. They could go and select Romney. They could select Big Bird for all that. I care. They could pick, they could pick someone really wild, or they could pick one of the candidates that's, or maybe they'll just say go with the candidate that has the most votes. But a lot of things could happen.
Okay. And on another note, I just have one comment. If, for whatever reason, the Supreme Court decides, in the long run to take away our Second Amendment rights, I think that they will finally have that revolution that we've been talking about, because I don't think the gun owners will voluntarily give up their guns. I think that would be a huge can of worms. I don't know whether they're ready to.
I can't even. You think it's difficult to deport 11 million illegal aliens? Try getting 300 million Americans to give up their guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, thanks for the call, man.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Alan, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, good morning. I think I would like to talk a little bit about the significance of the untimely death of Justice Scalia. This is going to be a really, really important time, because if President Obama gets his third nomination on the Supreme Court, the balance of the Supreme Court has been changed very drastically. And the impact and the ramifications of this are going to be felt for several generations, if not longer. And I hope that the Republicans in the Senate realize that they do not have an obligation to confirm any nominee that the president puts forward.
You know, it's so funny you say that because the Republicans, especially in the Senate, have been so acquiescent in the past to almost anything President Obama wants.
See, that's what
I totally don't agree with you on that. Why do you say that?
Me.
Go ahead, Al.
That scares me because you've seen the kind of nominees that have gotten on the Supreme Court. Sotomayor and Kagan. They don't get any further to the left and any further to the political activity than those two. And when you lose a giant that was so constitutionally founded and realized the importance of the Constitution, like Scalia, I don't even think it's possible to measure the impact of what this is going to have on this country.
All right, Alan, thanks for your call. We're going to get one more call in, and Catherine, you're it. Hi, go ahead.
Hi.
Got 2 minutes. Go.
2 minutes. Okay, a couple of things. One, about Mr. Judge Scalia. He was 79 years old and in poor health, so I do believe that it was a natural death. And the family has the right to decide whether an autopsy is going to be done or not, and they decided not.
Okay.
Right? Number two, as far as the significance of his death on the Supreme Court, I agree with Alan to a great extent. However, there are other options, and one of them is whoever gets into the presidential office next year has the option, if he has the guts to do it, to increase the number of Supreme Court justices on the bench, which I think would be an excellent idea because it would dilute the influence of one being so darned important for holding the line.
It's interesting that you would say that because I remember Rob saying yesterday that there's nothing in the Constitution that mandates just 9 Supreme Court justices.
Exactly. And 3, I was just perusing about some new books, and there's a new book coming out by Roger Stone, who's been in 4 administrations. He's been an advisor in 4 administrations, and he also was an advisor to Mr. Trump. It's looking at the Bush dynasty, and there's some very interesting things that are in there, going all the way back to Prescott Bush and his involvement with the Hitler regime in Germany. And Jeb Bush has been involved in 5 failed businesses, several failed businesses, and I think 5 of his business partners are or have been jailed.
And with that, we are completely out of time, Catherine.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Okay, John, what's coming up tomorrow?
We'll have the political science department on.
Cool. Political science. Perfect. Anyway, you guys have a great day. And
we will political mad science.
Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.